Hello everyone, my name is Aldo Mancino and today we'll talk about stacking drives. To me, one of the most beautiful things about electric guitar is the endless possibilities with pedals and effects. No other instrument has this much flexibility when it comes to altering your tone, experimenting with different sounds. If you look at my board, you will very quickly notice the sheer abundance of overdrive pedals. Now, many people might say that this is overkill and borderline unnecessary, but to me, it actually makes perfect sense, and to understand why, we must start from the beginning. By the way, if you're enjoying the video, don't forget to like and subscribe. It's a small gesture for you, but it means a whole lot for the channel. Now back to it. The thing I probably like the most about the genre of music that I play is the complexity and the very huge dynamic range between very low parts and very loud ones. That's why, to give my best as a player in this context, I have also learned how to be very dynamic when playing. That's why I spend so much time learning how to smoothly switch between pick and fingers. That's why I choose effects that leave compression out of the equation and conserve the most dynamic range in my tone, and that's why, instead of using one aggressive overdrive, I use many light ones. I'm sure you noticed how usually on overdrive pedals, the more gain you fit into the circuit, the more compression starts to kick in. This is one of the very beautiful things about modern pedal units, because it emulates beautifully what tubes do in power section of amplifiers. But if your goal is to introduce gain to your guitar without introducing also compression, you can very quickly see how, from a strength, this becomes a problem. This is why, instead of pushing one overdrive to the absolute edge, I use many different light gain stages stacked one after the other. The effect that this gives is especially noticeable when you really start to add up the pedals and have a lot of gain in your tone. For example, listen to this comparison between just the zombie clone pushed to the max and the same pedal but set as a boost and paired with two other light overdrives. Of course, different pedals will have different ways and different extents to which they introduce compression the more you raise the gain. And some units will actually do the opposite and be the exception to the rule. That's, for example, why my fuzz pedal says boost on the front. The question of how to stack overdrives is, to me, one of the most complex matters when it comes to effects pedals. Because tone is such a subjective thing, it changes so much from player to player that it's really hard to come up with an objective rule. This said, there will be some key principles to follow when stacking overdrives to have the best results possible. The first pedal in my signal chain is the full-tone fat boost, and as weird as it may sound, I actually use it as a fuzz pedal. I just dime every knob to the max and adjust the level so that it matches my clean tone. After this, I have the Frederic Effect Zombie Clone, which I actually did a video on last week. As I said in that video, this is my always on overdrive pedal. I set it with really low gain and just a bit more volume than my bare amplifier behind me would have. It just adds a bit of hair and some beautiful frequencies to my tone, which I really enjoy playing with. From the Zombie Clone, we go into the Boss SD1, and to be really honest with you, this is probably the one pedal on my board that I'm looking to change at some point. I would really like to have something that's a bit less mid-focused, something less tube screamery and more like in a blues breaker style. But anyway, aside from it, I actually set this as you would set pretty much any other tube screamer, like, Stevie Ray did back in the day. So with the gain at 0, the tone adjusted to taste, and the volume to be just a little bit louder than your clean tone. The last overdrive on my board is the Formula B Super Plexi. This is a JTM style blues breaker kind of circuit. It emulates the breakup of Marshall amplifiers very well. The cool thing about this pedal is that it has two independent channels, an overdrive and a boost channel, which I use as a volume plus for my solos. For the overdrive side, I just set everything at almost noon. There are still a few general rules that to me should be followed when stacking overdrives to ensure the best possible sound coming out of your board. Just think about them not as limitation, but as guidelines to really get the best out of the pedals you have. The first rule is to think about what pedal you want to be in control of your tone when stacking. Let me explain. Usually the pedal that's hit first by your signal will have a bigger impact on your tone than the ones that come after it. So if you have a pedal which you really like the sound of, like, for example, I really love the sound of the Zombie Clone, you should put that first in the chain to ensure that every pedal after it has a little bit of that character into the way they break up. The second rule is to break the first one. It might seem counterintuitive compared to what I just said before, but there's some cases where you want a gain pedal to completely alter your signal and make it almost unrecognizable compared to what you had before. That's the case with the fullton fat boost for me. I want that pedal to completely annihilate what the zombie clone does and give my tone a completely new set of frequencies. And that's before I put it very first in my chain, before my always on pedal. So there you have it. This is my somewhat comprehensive explanation of how to stack overdrives. It's a complex matter, and I believe that no YouTube video can substitute years of testing on your pedal board to see what works for you. But videos like this can really help you take a step in the right direction. As always, I'm Aldo Mancino. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't already, and I shall see you next week with another video.